Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. Things have really got stuck into a rut recently. The same weather day after day after day. Is there any sign of that changing as we head through the next 2 weeks? Let's see. Here's the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The animation runs from 18 GMT, Thursday the 7th of November. At the outset, high pressure centred to the east is continuing to dominate things. It's holding weather fronts back to the west of the United Kingdom. So mostly dry and settled. Running the sequence, not much changes in the short term. It could be some patchy drizzle, but it's mainly dry. However, through the weekend, a weather front does finally start to push eastwards, southeastwards. It's bringing some outbreaks of rain there into Scotland and Northern Ireland early on Sunday. And then it sinks southeastwards, but it is weakening. So by the time it reaches southern counties, it's probably just going to bring thicker cloud and maybe a few spots of rain. But there is clearer air behind it, at least for a time. And then it's high pressure once again, which is dominating. There are some signs of patchy outbreaks of rain affecting the far north and maybe the far east at times. But all in all, high pressure rules the roost. The upper air temperature sequence and jet stream profile through the same time period. Here it is, and to start off with, the UK is covered by yellows and oranges, so we've still got this very mild air aloft, although temperatures down at the ground level are not really responding as well as some of the computer models have been indicating, particularly the GFS, which this is showing, because there has been so much cloud around. Running this, what we see is that somewhat cooler air moves across for a time. There's that weather front going, and then towards the end of the week, the yellows and oranges are returning. Now, I've just mentioned that temperatures down at ground level haven't really been responding to the upper level warmth, and that's due to cloud cover. And I think the GFS has been over forecasting temperatures down at the surface and under forecasting the extent of cloud. So to illustrate potential conditions, I'm going to use data from the UKV model instead on this update. Friday 15 GMT, the best chance of brighter spells is in the west and the north, maybe Northern Ireland. And that's really going to impact temperatures. Where it stays cloudy, there'll be maybe 9, 10, 11 Celsius, so not far from the average. But where the sun breaks through, they could be significantly higher. In recent days, I think Scotland's seen values of 16, 17 or 18 Celsius, at least in some locations. Now, jumping forwards to Saturday, it's more of the same. The brightest skies in the north and the west. The highest temperatures there, possibly in the southwest Northern Ireland, because there's also some signs here of it turning brighter in southwestern England. Into Sunday. Now, this is when the weather front is pushing down across the UK. The UKV model here shows it over Northern England, Northern Wales at 18 GMT on Sunday. Of course, it could be a little bit ahead or a little bit behind schedule. It's too far ahead to be confident. And then the chart on the right is midnight on Sunday into Monday. You can see the outbreaks of rain have petered out, and really it's just bringing thicker cloud down into southern counties. Into Monday though, now that system moves away and the chance of sunny spells at last increases across much of the UK, but particularly central and eastern counties according to this. Temperatures could actually be therefore a little bit higher through the day on Monday, because although the air aloft is cooler, the sunshine will be warming things up more down at the surface. Conversely, it could lead to a cold night. 03 GMT on Tuesday morning. This is as far as the UKV model runs at the time of filming. You can see values down into single figures. The possibility there in the hours which follow of quite a widespread frost developing. Now, rainfall through days 0 to 5. The aggregates here are from the ECM and GFS models. GFS almost completely dry on the right. It doesn't make much out of that weather front at all, even in the north, even in much of the north. You can see in the northwest the values are somewhat higher. That's where the weather front is more active. The ECM though has slightly higher totals in all areas. Moving forwards to the 0 to 10 day period, and there are some significant differences here. ECM has bumped up the amounts of rain through days 5 to 10 in all parts of the UK, whereas GFS has kept it virtually dry for most of us. So some differences there, significant ones. How do the deterministic models in more general terms compare to each other towards the end of the first week? Here is the GFS, high pressure over the UK on Thursday the 14th. The Canadian model, high pressure. The German icon, a little bit different. The high pressure centered west and a northerly flow. It's not a particularly cold one, but a northerly flow nonetheless moving down across the UK. And the chance of some showery rain there in the far east. The ECM, though, is somewhat different to the others. This is the model which is showing the higher rain totals across the UK through days 5 to 10, and this is really why the high pressure areas have been split. There's one there to the west and one to the east, more of a trough type situation developing over the much of the UK, so a greater chance of rain, those wetter conditions on some days. Finally, though, the UK Met Office Global, high pressure centred over the northern half of the UK, low pressure to the south. I think the theme here is for it to be settled, but you need to keep an eye on developments to the south. Some rain could be starting to push up from France in the days which follow. So taking those together, perhaps a high pressure dominated scenario is starting to fray a little around the edges, although it looks like it will still be holding out at the end of the first week. So mostly dry, there could be some patchy rain around. After that clearer interlude, as the weather front moves away, the cloud could well be building once again. So that would suggest temperatures won't be fluctuating a great deal through the days and the nights. Not much diurnal variation. Cloudy skies peg back the temperatures during the days, hold them up at night. Now, what happens as we go through week 2? Just trends and probabilities at this range, of course. Here is the 16-day GEFS plot for London. 850 HPA temperatures across the top. Quite different to my last update because now there's a big spread showing up, and averaging them out is the thick purple line, the ensemble mean, and it's staying very close to the thick black line, the 30-year norm. So the signal for warm air aloft has now more or less gone. That said, there is a big spread, so there are still some runs in the mix which are bringing warmer air over the southern part of the UK, also some which are going colder. All in all, though, it's a much more typical and average picture. I think to an extent that's also reflected by the number of spikes across the bottom, which are showing forecasts of rain at a given time. There's certainly more than there have been on recent updates, so a more changeable pattern probably developing. But it does not look particularly wet. Sometimes you see big spikes appearing there through the second week. The mean is hardly rising above the 0 level. So some rain around through week 2, probably in the southeast, but amounts staying small. 2 meter temperatures, the trend here is downwards slightly. There's lots of light green now in these columns. In previous weeks, it's mainly been yellow, 11s to 15s, but that has now decreased. So it's for 6 to 10s through the days, which are dominating. Later on, a little bit of dark green. Those are quite cold, 1 to 5 Celsius, staying in a minority, though. I think the message here is that temperatures will be edging downwards, probably generally close to the average, though. Overnight lows, quite a lot of dark green showing up later, so the chance of ground frost increasing. And towards the end, there's a little bit of blue there, a few runs finally bringing in sub-zero temperatures. Air frosts, were they to be correct, it is something to keep an eye on. Up to Manchester, very, very similar, close to average across the top there, upper air temperatures. Rain risk is ongoing, but it's not very wet. I think it may be just worth mentioning the snow row, the number of runs which are forecasting snow to fall on a given day. It can, on the TWO charts, go up to 33, as I explained before. Values of 3 or 4, in other words, are suggesting a very low percentage chance of snow falling, but it's not totally out of the question, as you would expect in the last third of November. Just also worth reminding you that those snow rows mean snow to fall, not accumulate. It could just be a few flakes of snow mixed into a heavier burst of rain, for instance. 2-metre temperatures for Manchester, very similar to London, slightly lower as we head northwards, but the same patterns. Up to Glasgow, and here the 850 HPA temperature is probably best described as a little below the average, particularly later on, but once more, a big spread of solutions in terms of rain across the bottom, wetter than Manchester, which was wetter than London, so more unsettled in the northwest, but it's not particularly wet. There are some bigger spikes though, the chance of heavier bursts of rain at times. The snow row values, the highest out of the 3 charts, as you would expect in the north of UK, but still not really very high values by any means. 2-metre temperatures for Glasgow, lots more blue showing up on the overnight lows, a greater chance of air frosts. That's more so through the second half of the second week. Daytime temperatures, quite a lot of dark green, rather cold, and lots of light green. So I think the message there is that through the second week, temperatures in southern and central regions probably not far from the average. Even in northern England, Manchester looked quite reasonable compared to the norm, but maybe a little bit below it, starting to show up as we move into Scotland. Rainfall through week 2. The ECM charts show the probabilities of 5 or more millimetres of rainfall on a given day. Low chances through the first 2 days of the second week, but you can see on the third chart there, the amount of green is increasing. The distribution, somewhat uncertain because that green shading is showing up really in much of the UK, but particularly around northern, western and eastern coastal counties. Forwards to the following 3 days, the pattern is very similar. So I think these indicate the growing chance of rain, but it's not looking wet compared to the average. The mean surface level pressure data table for York just reinforces that signal. You can see through week 1, it's behind the shading here. There's lots of orange. Those are runs going for high pressure dominated scenarios, 1,026 to 1,040 millibars. But through the second week, the amount of orange is a good deal lower. It's certainly still present there. There's still a chance that high pressure will be dominating, but more green and blue is appearing than has been the case recently. So indications of a more changeable pattern. And the GEFS mean surface level pressure plot for Sunday the 17th of November backs that to an extent. High pressure centre to the south, low pressure to the north, and just indications that everything's shifting a little bit further south, the high pressure losing its grip. It's worth just emphasising, of course, this is averaging out all of the individual runs in the GEFS, so it's masking a range of different possible outcomes, but I think more changeable than it has been for some time would be a way of describing it. So to summarise, week 1, it's mostly settled to start off with, overcast and damp at times. It's going to be mild where cloud breaks. That's mostly going to be in the north and the west, but where it persists, daytime temperatures will be close to the average. Through the weekend, a weakening band of rain pushes southwards and somewhat clearer air follows it. It's going to be dry again, and that clearer and brighter spell may increase the risk of frost just for a time. Week 2, back to settled and rather cloudy conditions early on. Through the period though, it begins to turn more changeable. The chance of rain increases. It doesn't look particularly wet though by any means. Temperatures probably dipping later on. So there we have it. I think some changes through the next 2 weeks. High pressure's influence starting to weaken, especially towards the end of the forecast period. A big spread of scenarios was being shown by the ensemble data, but in general, temperatures really trending down towards the average. The snow risk remaining low, but maybe just increasing a little bit in Scotland, especially, of course, over the high ground. All in all, still fairly benign, but indications that things are on the move. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. As ever, if you did, please consider hitting the like button below and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you do, you'll never miss any of my future updates. Of course, remember to stay up to date with the day-to-day weather developments by checking out the TheWeatherOutlook.com website. Thanks very much now. Bye.